Right, today I'm stitching this 4" or 10 cm wreath. For additional patterns, you can get those if you sign up to my newsletter. I've included this 6" one and the 5" one here as well. I've printed it out, but it didn't print out in colour, so that's what that is at the top. It looks a bit prettier if you've downloaded it. I've got 3 green painted hoops and I can't decide which colour yet, so I'll decide that later. I've got a piece of linen. You'll need roughly sort of 18 by 18 centimetres if you're stitching a 4" hoop. Okay, so stick your template to a flat surface just to keep it in position. I'm using this lovely linen, it's Essex linen, and it's really nice to stitch on. I get a lot of questions about fabric, and that's one of my favourites. And it's really good because you can see the pattern over it. Make sure it's in the middle. You could just place your hoop over like that just to check. And I'm going to use one of these Aquatrick markers, which is, if you've been following the Happy Stitch project, you'll know is a recent discovery for me, and they're perfect for this project. So I'll try and make this as clear as I can for you. I'm basically just going to draw over the lines really, really carefully. So I'm going to start with the circle first, just because once that's in position, that'll make life a little bit easier. So just take your time, draw over it really carefully, and these pens are great because they will disappear later on when I finish the stitching and I apply the water with the water brush, so don't worry too much if you get them in the wrong place if you're using something like this. Obviously if you're using a permanent method of transfer, you'll need to be really careful just to make sure that you're just taking extra care and getting them in the right place. So I'm going to draw on the little V shapes where that part of the fern stitch is going to go to make it look leaf-like. If you can't quite see, just lift up your fabric really carefully, just at one side, don't move it out of place, but you can always just lift it up a little bit just to see where you're going. There we go, I'm just going to do it like that just so I can work out roughly where they are. And there we go, it's as simple as that. Okay, pop the lid on and we'll just remove the template so it doesn't get in the way. Okay, let's get this in the hoop then. I'm just going to use this green one for now and I'll decide later on. Okay, so we'll just pop the inner ring underneath, get that nice and central. Just pop that over, readjust it if you want to. And because the design of this doesn't reach the edge, you could spend a little bit of time just getting it right in the middle. You don't have to, we can always readjust it later, that's fine. And just tighten the screw there. Make sure the tension of your fabric's okay, so not pull too tightly, but it needs to be nice and flat, don't pull it out of shape. Right, so I'm going to use DMC shade 701. Now, at first I thought I would use 3 strands of this. It looks a bit zigzaggy because it's been wrapped on a bobbin. I put all mine on bobbins, and I've used a bit of thread magic as well. At first I thought I was going to use 3 strands like I normally do, and then I decided actually that I would use 4 instead. So don't throw those other 2 strands away, you'll be able to use those for something else. Now if you've watched the fern stitch tutorial already, you'll know that you start with the horizontal stitch and then do those nice V-shaped ones. Okay, so I'm going right back into where that first stitch ended there. That's really important. And on the original tutorial video, after we'd stitched this V, what I then did was do another horizontal stitch and then another V straight away, but just because of where the shapes are in the pattern, we're going to have to put an extra stitch there to be able to get to the next one because that line there is thicker. So we're essentially dividing it in half and then doing that extra one. So I'm just going to come up there at the top where the points of the V meet and go back into that first stitch that I did. There we go, so it's still one continuous line, and then when I come up for the next stitch, look, I'm going right in the middle of that gap between the 2 V shapes. Going right into where the stitches started before, and then I'm just going to do those V's, again all going into that same point there. That's it. So remember, just remember to do those 2 stitches. So I'm going to do this extra horizontal one here. It's obviously not quite horizontal because it's going round in a circle, but you get the point. Let's carry on. Just go around here and add another one in. I really like how quickly this builds up. It's really, really lovely stitch. It's really easy to do, and you just build it up. So this is a project that you can actually stitch fairly quickly. I've done all of this tutorial in like a couple of hours in an afternoon, and the stitching was not most of that time. Most of the time was the video editing and things. So it's a nice little project for an evening or an afternoon if you want to. And if you head over to my blog, I'll pop the link, the direct link in all the info on the YouTube video here. So just have a look underneath. There's some ideas for how you could make it your own. I've left this hoop, as you'll see shortly, as just the wreath. But I've popped some ideas in that post for other things that you could add to the hoop if you wish. Because you could just use this as a starting point and make your own piece. It's something that would stitch really nicely on a bigger hoop. And as I've said, newsletter subscribers this week will have received the additional bigger ones. So there's this pattern for a 5-inch hoop and a 6-inch hoop as well. If you missed out on that, don't worry, you can still sign up and you'll be able to go back and find the older ones, or it's easy to just enlarge it a little bit if you print it out at a slightly bigger size. So that's easy enough to do. Let's go back in there. There we are. It's building up really nicely. You can see how the stitches are coming together, and obviously I'm stitching here in real time, so you're getting a sense of how long it's taken to actually make this project. Pop another stitch in, and that's another one done. Right, so I've just cut ahead a little bit. You can see that I've finished the rest of the wreath. That's what it looks like on the back. I just adjusted it in the position in the hoop. I decided to stick with this colour, but I just moved it a little bit. Now I'm going to show you this little trick. All embroiderers should have a screwdriver, because that little screw at the top is just perfect for this, because it means you can just tighten it a little bit more. And before you finish the back, it could be a nice idea. You just got to check that you're not pulling the tension. So do a few twists and then check the tension of the fabric. And if you've gone too far, just unscrew it a little bit. But this will just help keep it in the frame nice and securely, a little bit more than tightening it would just with your hands. Right, so let's get the Aquatrick water brush out. So you can see in a few places I've got a few little bits of blue ink visible. Okay, with this pen you just need to push the buttons and the water will come out. Test it on a corner so you can kind of feel how much pressure that you need. Always squeeze it out to one side and then just dab it on, and you can see that the ink is going away. It's like magic. It's amazing. And so it's perfect for this because the brush of this pen just kind of fits in nicely, just kind of in and around the stitches. You can see that the thread, the DMC thread that I'm using here, is colour fast, so the colour isn't running. I'm just able to kind of use the brush where I need it around those stitches just to get all of that ink off. Now, what I have learnt this week with the brush pen is that in between using it, so after you've used it on one project, it's a really good idea just to give the tips of the brush a gentle wash, because sometimes some of the blue of the ink can stay on there, and what happens is that next time you come to use it, you put a bit more blue back on, which is obviously not what you want. So just remember to give it a quick clean, and that'll be really helpful for when you come to use it in your next project. So as you can see, I'm just going round and I'm removing all of those little bits of blue here. It's super, super easy. There we are, look, it's looking great, it's just like magic. Also, I would say don't put it near a radiator to dry because that can sometimes bring any leftover blue out. Just leave it on a table to dry. I was going to say at room temperature. The temperature, I guess, makes a difference in some ways, but you know what I mean. Just leave it on a flat surface to dry. Right, so once your hoop's dry and you're happy with all the blue has gone, you might need to go back again. We can finish the back. Now, I haven't got a lot of room at this side, so I'm just going to trim it to the same width so it's the same all the way around. And you just need to do this by eye. It doesn't need to be exact. No one's going to see the back anyway. So just trim it all the way around really carefully with a nice pair of fabric scissors. You should always have a larger pair of fabric scissors for doing this. Don't use them for anything else. Don't let anyone else, like your children or your partner or whoever, use them either. Try and keep them nice and sharp. So make sure the screw's at the top. And then we can just get some pearl to finish the back. So you just need to wrap it around roughly. You need to just make sure that it's going to be longer than the circumference of the hoop. So let's thread a needle. And if you haven't seen me finishing the back of the hoop before, if this is your first of the Happy Stitch projects, basically what we're going to do is finish the back nicely, and I like to leave my hoops open. I just think it's really nice to see all the work that's gone into it. So yeah, but you can cover it. You can cover it with felt, or I've seen people cover it with scrapbook paper and that kind of thing. So it's up to you, and it's part of your stitching signature really. So tie a knot in the end, leave the end loose, that's important, we need that loose. And we're just going to stitch a running stitch all the way around here. Now I've left myself with not too much fabric. I think this piece that I used was actually slightly smaller than 18 by 18 centimetres, so I've left myself a little bit short. So I'm a bit fingers and thumbs here. But I'm just going to stitch around, and as you can see already that it's starting to gather as I do those running stitches. And basically when we pull it nice and tightly at the end, that'll all come together for us at the back and just finish that really neatly. Even if you are going to cover the back once you've done this bit, it's always good to do this bit because it just brings it all together nice and neatly. So round we go. Oops. So I always have a stash of white pearl in my sewing items, just because a lot of the fabric that I use is white and it just comes in really handy. If you're using another colour, you can still use white because nobody else is going to see the back anyway. Or if you want to be super neat, you can always match the pearl thread. It's number 8 pearl, which is the same thickness as 3 strands, but I wouldn't advise using 3 strands to finish the back. It's not ideal really, because you want to have just that one single thread and it'll just be a little bit stronger. Right, we're almost there. That'll do. Right, so you just give it a pull and you can see that it's getting tighter on the end of the hoop. Oops, I'm definitely all fingers and thumbs today, sorry. Just tie a knot. You can use your needle to help or take that off, whatever you prefer. Pull it nice and tight and try and keep it tight while you're wrapping it around to do that second knot. You can do a third one again for luck if you like, if it feels like it needs it, or you can just trim the excess straight away. Trim a little bit more. There we go. And that's it. That's our lovely fern stitch wreath hoop.